and he did it with hard work.
Right.
He didn't have he didn't beat them because he had access to more drugs or better drugs. He didn't beat them because he was training on better equipment. He didn't beat them because he was doing newer, fancier exercises. I mean, you had all the guys he was beating training out in Venice on the newest, best equipment, with access to, I'm sure, whatever it is they wanted to take. And he beat them because he was a fucking animal.
Yeah. I mean, I was out there in those years and I saw those guys training, and I saw Dorian. I was able to watch Dorian train a couple times, and he did train harder than any of those guys. No offense. Maybe Leveroni would probably be one who was approached that level of intensity, because Kevin was a hard trainer too.
And Dorian, I think, was very regimented. I don't think he deviated. I think he was so overly structured that he just knew, okay, I know what I need to do. If I do all these things, the result is going to be fantastic. And therefore, I'm going to do those things. There's no other way about it. I'm doing that shit. That's the end of the story. And that's what he did. And that's why he was just such a fucking bad dude.
He was a machine for all those years. Yeah. And now look at him. He's enjoying his life. So that's the next thing I sort of wanted to shift into is, Dorian, when he retired, he downsized. He had no problem with his ego. He was the biggest bodybuilder of all time for a while. He set a whole new standard. But once he was done, he was done. He said, I'm not going to be walking around 280, 300 pounds anymore. There's no need for it. And he's much, much smaller now. And he could give a rat's ass what anybody says about him or thinks about him. He's living his life. He's loving life. And I applaud the guy. I think it's very hard for most bodybuilders who that's their identity, is based on this gigantic body that they've built, these crazy extreme dimensions, and having the attention and people staring and, wow, look at that dude. And I think it's hard. It's very hard for a lot of the guys, even when they know they're never competing again. There's no way, but they're so wrapped up in that. And, I don't think any of us are really 100% immune from that. Where do you stand on that? Because you've been away from the stage now going on 6 years. You look like a pretty big son of a bitch to me right now. I don't know what you weigh, because you were never going to be a small guy. You were a husky big kid long before you touched a weight. So you were never going to be a 98-pound weakling. But how much size are you carrying now? And do you plan on carrying this much size forever, or what's going on?
So right now I'm getting ready for a photo shoot with Animal, who we just re-signed. This is either year 15 or 16 together, which from being in this industry is
that's all like a record. I think the only one who beats you was like Vinny Galanti, was with Universal a little
10 years.
Oh, is it only 10 years? I thought it was
I think it was 10. I could be wrong.
Maybe you might be the champ. I'm not sure.
I think so. And granted, I don't know. Anyways, that's something I'm really, really proud of. And okay, so anyways, we just resigned end of February. We have a photo shoot scheduled. So I started a couple months ago getting in shape. I'm down to like 260, and I'm pretty close. So, the upper body wise, it's not much of a departure from what I used to, but I see a difference in my lower body for sure. There was a point when I was training, and all my movements were really strong. Yeah. And, my freaking ass was this big, and, I'm not carrying that same kind of weight in my lower body anymore. So that's probably where I see it the most. If the injuries that I had in my lower body were resolved, I think the mass would come right back, because I have no problem training or putting in the work, to do all that stuff. So a lot of it is just kind of some limitations in my training that obviously they're kind of roadblocks. Right. As far as, kind of how I feel about it, I graduated high school at 2.25. I'm never going to be really thin.
Right.
I personally, bodybuilding for me, I've always enjoyed, from the time I was a kid, I always thought that muscularity just looked awesome. Like growing up in the 80s and seeing Schwarzenegger in movies and Stallone and, watching the WWF, I was exposed to a lot of it. It was the 80s. And muscularity and masculinity and machoism was in style.
Right. It
And I think that
it wasn't toxic back then.
it wasn't toxic. It was okay to be a man back then.
Yeah.
So that rubbed off on me. I mean, there's no way it didn't influence me. It was everywhere. I mean, Mr. T, dude. I mean, I remember watching the A-Team at the fucking babysitters. So it was a different time. I personally, I think it was an awesome time.
It was. It really was.
And I was heavily influenced by it. So I'm always going to think muscle is cool. I'm always going to love looking in the mirror and seeing a fit, muscular body in the mirror. I mean, that's something I think most guys would appreciate. That said, I wouldn't have any kind of lasting desire to try to maintain a body that would be competitive of an IFBB professional. I mean, mentally, I'm okay enough with myself. Bodybuilding, I'll always love bodybuilding. It'll always be a part of my life. But I don't feel it's entirely who I am. So if that part of me isn't as exploited, it isn't as, I don't know, as fulfilled as it once was, there's other things that will be explored more. I'm probably not articulating this well.
That's okay. I know what you mean. Well, let me ask you this. The last year, we haven't talked since, I think right after we talked last year is when everybody started dying. It was ridiculous. It was like, at one point, it was like somebody every week or every other week. Which of those people hit you the hardest? For me, it's a toss up between George Peterson hit me hard and John Meadows. Those two really, really bothered me. I cried.
John Meadows, as somebody who I spent a good deal of time with and had a lot of personal interaction with, always stayed in touch. I mean, he stayed in my house. I stayed in his house. We talked frequently, and he's somebody that not just for me, but I think really for the entire industry, he was, I don't know, he was like a fucking beacon of morality. He was truly the good guy. I mean, you will never, I have never, and I don't think you ever would hear anyone say a single bad thing about John Meadows.
Nope.
And he was incredibly intelligent, very much on top of his stuff. So, I know he had other things in the past, unrelated. I don't know. It was really, I was so blown away. I remember where I was when I heard the news, and I was just like, no way. I just can't believe it.
Yeah, there's this thing that came to my mind a few times. It was like, he was too good for this world. It's a wicked world. And he was one of those people that was just, like you said, he was just such a good guy. It's like, it didn't even seem real in this world we lived in, that there still were, thank God there were, and there still are people like that. There's not many of them. But
he was just good through and through, just good.
Yeah.
Nothing bad.
Yeah.
There was no bad.
Yeah.
So that really, really hit me. I don't know, but something, and of course, and this is always really annoying when something like this happens and people immediately start talking about, anabolic use.
Yeah.
Look, okay. I think John Meadows was he 50 years old?
49.
49.
Yeah.
There's plenty of guys that drop dead in their 20s. I mean, look at all these athletes. I mean, there's been a rash of soccer players who, if you've ever watched a soccer game, I mean, these guys run and run and run. I mean, they're in incredible physical and cardiovascular shape. How do you explain them passing in the way that they are? I don't know.
I mean, I don't want to get shut down by YouTube, but
Right.
vaccine. Could there be an I'm not saying there is, but could there be? Maybe.
Well, there's certainly, it seems like whether it's exposure to the vaccine or COVID,
right?
If COVID could cause issues with clotting, and if the vaccine is a small dose of COVID, whether it's the vaccine or exposure to COVID itself, I suppose it could potentially make some sense,
Yeah.
because, and listen, I'm not saying that the things you do as a bodybuilder are going to do you any favors,
Right.
right? I mean, they're not
Nope.
going to increase your chances of longevity. But just because somebody passes, it could be a number of things, and it's a little bit more, I think, multifactorial.
Yeah, it's not always, people do like to draw cause effect, draw these conclusions just based off, and yeah, there could be so many other issues involved. But let's move on to something you did talk about before we started recording, which was crazy. You're off you got a real job. You're working in finance, you said? I don't even know what that means. What is finance?
Okay, so a longtime friend of mine, known him over 20 years, close personal friend. He's a financial planner, right? Company he works for. It's really about both sides of the industry. So whether it's life insurance, disability insurance, long-term care, then the other side of it being, retirement planning, investments, et cetera, et cetera. So really anything and everything pertaining to financial planning.
Yeah.
And several years ago, he's like, dude, you'd be really good in this industry. You should come work with us. You would do great. I think you'd like it. So finally, I reached a point and I said, yeah, you know what? Bodybuilding, of course, is finite. Not going to be able to compete forever, as I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I think there's several other opportunities within the industry, and I still think that my relationship with Animal, there's still a lot of possibility there. But that being said, I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. So I took time to, start getting certain certifications, licenses, et cetera. And I've been working in that space now for a little bit, and I really like it. At the end of the day, it's stuff that everybody needs.
Yeah.
We all go through school, whether it's, high school, college, an advanced, you go for an advanced degree. For most people, unless that's your chosen field, financial planning and things like that aren't really a part of your education. So, for a lot of us, it's kind of this weird scenario where you go from like being in your 20s, where you're just getting started, you're probably not making a lot of money yet, hit your 30s, start picking up momentum, you start making money, maybe you have a kid, maybe you have a couple kids, time's flying, and then you're like, wait a minute, am I on, like, I'm 20, 25 years away from when I would hope I'd be able to retire. Am I on track to do that?
Yeah.
Or, you say, wait a minute, I have kids. Should I have life insurance? I mean, look at all the guys that have passed away, in the last year, as you said earlier.
Yeah. I mean, the one that I assume had everything set up perfectly was John, because he had worked in finance in the banking industry. So
I would assume so.
Right.
But as I'm finding out, working in this industry, I've met with a lot of very successful people and had the opportunity to take a look at what they have in place. And these are people, working with other advisors, et cetera, et cetera. And it's shocking sometimes to see what they're not doing, or kind of come to the realization that whoever they've been working with is, for lack of a better term, asleep behind the wheel.
Incompetent.
So, you never know. But what I know is a lot of guys, just on the life insurance side, right? They'll shy away from it because maybe they think it's cost prohibitive, it's unattainable, or they think maybe they wouldn't be able to get it. And look, I have it. Plenty of guys have it. It's, you have to know how to go about doing it, and you need somebody to talk to who understands what you're involved in.
Yeah.
But I think we could all agree, especially, those of us who have kids, that if something were to happen to us, and anything could happen to anybody at any time,
Yeah.
we'd want to know that our kids are provided for. And, somebody setting up a GoFundMe, if you should pass, is not really a viable
No, I mean,
you know,
just,
option.
even just talking in terms of, I don't know what, you can tell me the statistic. I bet you know it off the top of your head. It's something like 80% of Americans don't have enough money, or is it 90? Don't have enough saved for their retirement. That's terrifying, because who are they counting on? You really think the government's going to take care of you? We're going to have all this money? Because people are living too freaking long now. That's the problem.
They're living longer and they're just not as
Productive.
financially responsible as they should be. I mean, do you know how many people, and I saw this 15 years ago when I was working as a title searcher. You know how many times I would search a property, say, oh wow, okay, the guy bought the house for 500,000. Huh. He's got a 490 mortgage.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's the American way, is to live beyond your means, is to just charge everything and be in crazy debt. But it's scary. I luckily, my wife's a lot smarter than me with money, and she forced us to get all that life insurance. And I have a Roth IRA, and she's got a 401k. And
Excellent.
I look around and I see a lot of people, and I talk to them, and they don't have anything, nothing. Unless
I mean,
they're,
Ron,
that's
the
scary.
majority of people will spend more time planning vacations, time planning dinners out with friends, planning a lot of things than they will spend planning their financial future. And if you talk to anybody, hey, you going to retire someday? Yeah, of course. Are you on track to do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunately time goes by quickly.
Yeah.
And it's shit that we all need to be thinking about. And for a lot of people, it's a pain point, because maybe they haven't been doing what they're supposed to be doing, so they don't want to address it. But once they finally do, it's something you can really feel good about, knowing, okay, you know what, I've got a plan, I'm on track, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. I work with a guy from New York Life. He's really good, and he's good at dumbing it down for people like me. And he sits down and shows me all the numbers, because we started in our mid 30s, maybe early 30s. We started, he goes, well, this is what you have, and this is what you're going to have when you retire. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That's good. That makes me feel, it's relief, because you should be scared if you're like 40, 50 years old and you don't have anything saved up. My God, you need to, I'm sure you're able to hopefully start people a little younger, because it's a time thing. It's
well, that's exactly what I was going to say. What the crazy thing is, like, using insurance as an example. Most people won't think about life insurance until they have a kid. Okay, and that's fair enough, right? If you don't have a child, you really have an insurable need. However, for somebody who's in their 20s, right, male or female, you're in your 20s, you're young, you're the picture of health, your blood work is perfect, you can attain insurance for free.
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes the time to get the stuff is when you don't need it. Rather than wait until unfortunately for a lot of us, things are not going to get better with age.
I mean,
as much as we like to think so.
Yeah, I mean, because there is an exam, guys, for your life insurance, health insurance, all that stuff. And if you're overweight, diabetic, you got a heart problem, good luck, guys. Good luck.
Yeah, and just because you want life insurance doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to attain it. Right. So it's all things to think about, and whether it's on the protection side or on the accumulation side. You start saving. Look, the sooner you start doing that shit, the better. The more years you've got behind you, man, you'll be a rock star.
Yeah, and I mean, people will say, "Oh, I don't want to put $500 away every month. I could go on vacation. They're thinking of all these things that they could buy and do with that money. But you know what? You don't want to be 65 years old and you got to keep working till the day you die because you're too lazy, or you just didn't want to part with that money.
They lack the discipline, or they want the flash. But all the things that you're going to piss away money on a monthly basis, unless you're investing it in real estate or things like that, you're buying material things. Those things are going to be gone in 20 years. All that shit's going to be gone. You will not have anything to show for it. So whether you're investing in property or you're investing in some type of retirement account, invest in something that in the future you'll have something to show for it, I guess, really is the takeaway.
Yeah, not a Rolex or Range Rover or vacations to freaking Tahiti. Anyway, we're losing people now with this. So I'll wrap it up. We've been very generous with your time. It was reported recently that you had retired. So I want to give you the chance to say yes or no, I am retired, or maybe you will compete again someday. You don't want to. Where do you stand on that subject, Evan Centopani?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't ruled it out. As it stands right now, I've got a couple injuries. There's a reason I've been waiting to address them. But I'm going to get things looked at. I'm going to see exactly what's going on. If there are things that I can resolve, then, physically, I still absolutely feel that I've got a couple more rounds in the tank. So no, I haven't ruled it out, but I don't have a show in mind or anything like that at this moment. So no, I haven't officially, announced my retirement or anything to that effect, but, we'll see.
Because your pro career thus far was only 7 years long, right?
My pro career, when I turned pro in 07.
Well, you didn't do your first show till 09, right?
True.
And your last show was 2016?
Yeah.
7 years.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's funny, but back to Dorian, because Dorian did everything he did in a very short span of time. Sorry for those of you who are not obsessed with Dorian like we are, but Dorian's first pro show was 1990. His last pro show was 1997. He wasn't around that long.
But in that time, he fucking won 5 Olympias.
Six.
Six. I mean, he was Mr. Olympia 6 out of the 7 years he was competing. I mean, you're a fucking stud.
Come on now. Yeah. He was only beaten twice ever. It was Mohammed Benaziza beat him at his first pro show. He got second. Then he got second to Lee Haney, his first Olympia. Nobody ever beat him again in a pro show.
I mean, dude, come on. That's pretty badass.
Seriously. Anyway, well, I don't care if you ever compete again, Evan. You're one of those people. It doesn't matter. You're so well respected. People love you. It's a karma thing. You put out a lot of good energy and a lot of, yeah, I know I'm kissing your ass here, but it's true. You're one of the good guys. I don't hear, I hear people talk shit about other bodybuilders constantly, as you know. I've never heard anyone say anything about you, honest to God.
That's cool. That's real cool.
You're doing something right with the way you live your life and the way you treat people.
I appreciate it. All
right, I'm going to wrap it up. I got to remind everybody, views aren't that important on YouTube anymore. Apparently it's likes. That's what they want you to do now, is to get likes. I don't know. That's algorithm. What is algorithm? I don't even know what that means. It's some kind of math thing, right?
Nobody knows what it means.
Yeah, I took algebra. It's not the same thing. Anyway, so yeah, please like the video, subscribe to channels and all that. Evan, you have your channel is called Evan Centopani.
My channel, there's some really great videos on it, but I haven't posted anything in years. I know I should get back to it, but I haven't. Hey, but you know something? If anybody watching this is local, right? I live in Trumbull, Connecticut. If you're in the area, reach out to me. Let's do some stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's a guy, New England Muscle Media. He lives in, he did all George Peterson's videos. He used to go down to Long Island all the time.
And he's in Connecticut?
No, he's like out in Western Mass, but he goes down Connecticut, New York all the time.
Okay.
Ricky Latz, I think his name is, something like that. Anyway, if you're watching this, hit Evan up. Anyway, so thanks, Evan. Appreciate you taking the time. Follow him on Instagram at Evan Centopani. All kinds of good stuff. Today there was an illustration of some, like a how to do a dip or something, like the anatomical illustration from Brazil, and they used your body as an example.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember those shots.
I showed my daughter. I said, Alana, come here, look at this. And I'm thinking to myself, that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm like, as a kid, just, I don't know, the thought of it. That's
the thought that out of any human being in the world, they could have used to illustrate the muscles that work in a dip. They thought, this guy, Evan Centopani, has got the best shoulders, chest, and triceps that we could possibly find. We're going to use him. Yeah.
A guy from Brazil, no less.
Yeah, dude, Brazil is going, they're coming on strong. You better learn Portuguese. We all better learn Portuguese. They're taking over the sport. Yeah.
That's all right. I like the Brazilians. They're good.
Oh, I mean, what's not to like? So yeah, thanks, Evan. Appreciate you taking the time. If you never compete again, that's fine. If you do, even better. I'd be right there up front screaming your name. So we'll see what happens. Everybody, thanks for watching Ronline Report with Evan Centopani. We'll see you next time.